Very simple. In the previous amendment that you just voted on, 223, it added a number of relatives to the family member definition. It added aunt, uncle, niece, cousin, and it also had the word domestic partner as someone who could be a family member. And in researching this, I found that domestic partner is not a defined term in Nebraska statute, and I'm concerned that this could make it unconstitutional. And also, who is a domestic partner that's going to be coming forward as a family member? Might be somebody that nobody else knows about that relationship, or whether it even has existed. So I would like to just delete the word domestic partner in this bill, and that's all I had about that. I'd just like to ask for support of AM 919.
Thank you, Senator Clements. Debate is now open on AM 919. Senator Pansing Brooks.
Thank you. I do not consider that a friendly amendment. Senator Clements just brought this to me. Other states had included friends and we decided not to go that far, but to decide to include people who are living together. I personally, in our law firm, have had numerous instances where we have had married couples that ended up separating because they needed to split their incomes, and we've also had instances where two people have come together and they're elderly, and because of situations with their family, they have decided not to get married. So Senator Clements' amendment would make it so that if two elderly people had moved in together and love each other but decided for various purposes not to combine their incomes and their assets underneath a marital agreement, then that's not possible for that person who's living with, for people to visit each other. So I am sorry that he brought this 5 minutes ago to me. He said that he's talked to the AG about this, but I've called the Attorney General and I can't get anybody to answer right now. And so to bring this at this late date without even communicating with me about it, when there was no opposition at all in committee, and I don't know what the intent is of this. Would Senator Clements answer a question?
Senator Clements, you yield, please.
Yes, Mr. President.
Is there another word that you would prefer, like cohabitating individuals, or what is it that seems to be the problem with this?
No, there's not another word. I just would like to delete domestic partner.
Okay, so what about two elderly people who are living together and have decided to spend the last years of their lives together, but they've chosen not to marry?
I don't know.
Too bad for them, right?
I don't know if state statute has a definition for that.
Okay, thank you, Senator Clements. This is the testimony we heard was heartrending about people not being able to get access to their loved ones, and most states have gone so far as extending it to friends. We didn't go that far because we thought that was too hard for the courts to handle. So we listed it as domestic partners. There's definitions all through Black's Dictionary. I haven't had time, but I'm pretty sure the courts can determine what a domestic partner is. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Senator Pansing Brooks. Senator Baker.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Clements yield to a question?
Senator Clements, you yield, please.
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator, are you aware that in today's society there's people who never get married?
Yes.
They raise kids, they have families just like yours and mine, except they never get married.
Yes.
You don't want to exclude those type of situations. You don't want to exclude those people the ability to see a loved one, do you?
My concern is it could be a lot broader than that. Someone you don't even know could claim to be their partner.
Well, what about something like household member?
That would not be in my amendment.
Well, but you would be denying people. You know, I read a lot of finance magazines, and there's been times when elderly people, are actually advised to go get divorced for financial reasons to prevent financial disaster. Doesn't mean they didn't love each other anymore. It's just that for financial reasons, they're advised to get divorced and do that. For Social Security benefits, you name it. You're not seeking to prevent that type of situation, the person be able to visit, are you?
I don't know. I think state statute needs to define those situations better. This one is not defined.
Okay, so the goal should be to find another term rather than exclude these people. Would you agree?
I haven't researched that. So,
back to the examples I gave you. There's people right now who are raising families, never have got married, probably never will get married. Someday they're going to be old. One of them might end up with dementia in a facility somewhere. And should they then not be able to ever see each other anymore?
well, I just don't think state law defines them as family members. I'm not sure.
They might not be defined as family members, but they've raised kids together. They build a life together. It meets a lot of definitions, maybe not the legal definition of being married, but they're still family. Thank you, Senator. So I would, rather than just strike that, I would reject that amendment and entertain another amendment if there's a more suitable term, more easily understood than domestic partner. I mean, let's bring it on. Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Baker. Senator Marfeld.
Thank you, Mr. President. Would Senator Clements yield to a question, please?
Senator Clements, you yield, please.
Yes, Mr. President.
Senator Clements, I'm sorry, I missed maybe like the first minute, then I started listening. So did you state why you believe that this could be unconstitutional by having this phrase?
Because the term domestic partner is not defined in Nebraska statute.
Okay. And under what constitutional theory, or is there a court case that states that if a term is not defined in statute that it's somehow unconstitutional? Can you provide that?
Sorry, I'm not an attorney. That was an opinion of mine.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Senator Clements. Senator Clements, and I'm done asking questions, but I do want to make a quick statement. As an attorney, when a certain phrase is not defined in statute, the court goes and looks at the common usage of that phrase. And usually what they do is they go to the Merriam-Webster's dictionary or a common dictionary of note, and they look at what that term is if the legislature doesn't define it, and then they use that dictionary definition and apply it to the statute. And so, for instance, in this case, I looked up the Merriam-Webster dictionary definition. Domestic partner means either one of an unmarried, heterosexual, or homosexual cohabiting couple, especially when considered as to eligibility of spousal benefits. So there's already a definition in the Merriam-Webster's dictionary. And so simply because something's not defined, Senator, because there's lots of terms that are not defined in our statute, a lot of them, does not mean that it's unconstitutional. In fact, quite to the contrary. The court always looks to the common definition of the term, if not defined by the legislature. So I just want to make that point that, number one, colleagues, just because we don't define a term, which is often the case, does not mean a statute is unconstitutional. And if that was the case, I would say 3/4 of our statutes are unconstitutional. And that would just be an absurd result. And so if we want to define domestic partner, I would say, Senator Clements, that would be the more proper amendment rather than just simply taking it out of statute, because that is not how the courts interpret our statute. And again, if that was the way that we interpreted our statute, I would venture to guess that 3/4 of our statutes would be unconstitutional, and that would be an absurd result. And the court doesn't look at it that way. It's a commonly held canon of statutory interpretation, that if a term is not defined in statute, you go to the common usage and you go to the dictionary. Colleagues, I would urge you to not adopt AM 919, and I would be more than happy to work with Senator Clements on coming up with a definition if he would like that, and if that's okay with Senator Pansing Brooks. But I don't think that this is the way to address it, because I know personally that there are a lot of people who have been together for over 10, 20 years. If we had common law marriage in Nebraska, which I don't believe we had, they would be common law married and they own property together, that would benefit from LB 122, and with Senator Clements' amendment, would really be left in a lurch of not being able to see their loved one. So again, colleagues, I urge you not to adopt AM 919 based on the reasons Senator Clements provided. I do think it's reasonable that maybe Senator Clements wants to have a definition. If that's the case, then I think we should come up with a definition. I'd be more than happy to work with Senator Clements. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thanks, Senator Marfeld. Senator Blood.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Fellow senators, my friends, it's almost 5 o'clock. I have a question, if Senator Clements would yield.
Senator Clements, to yield, please.
Yes, Mr. President.
So would you be more comfortable with a term like interpersonal relationship?
I'd rather not try to think about things right now. I think one possibility would just name that person a power of attorney, or add power of attorney in here, someone who has a legal standing that the other person has designated.
And I respect that. Can I share my concern with you?
Yes.
Okay, sir, my concern is people with disabilities. People with disabilities, especially if they are both severely disabled, don't marry, but live together as domestic partners. Why do you think that is?
Well,
because they lose benefits once they get married, and they cannot survive. And these are many, many people that cannot otherwise find work, that are barely hanging on what little they get in benefits already. And so my concern is, if we don't find a resolution to this wording, is that people with disabilities will miss out. And so it is my hope that you do work with Senator Moorfield or Senator Pansing Brooks, because I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree, but I want to make sure that we're not disenfranchising anybody just because of a word.